Is China preparing for war? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. To be specific, is China, after 74 years, preparing at last to repossess the island of Taiwan? If so, what has prompted them to act now? More to the point, is Taiwan the American people's fight? Or is it only the present American government's fight? Or the World Economic Forum's fight? I have posed some provocative questions. I mean them to be, because I want to provoke some honest discussion. Before we get to it, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, 1984 was not an instruction manual. And one of the instructions the Biden administration is clearly taking from George Orwell's 1984, you can sum up in one sentence. We have always been at war with East Asia. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. First and foremost, in any council of war is an intelligence report. So without further ado, here is the latest on China from Twitter and elsewhere. Twitter user War Clandestine dropped a thread on Easter Sunday. This after President Emmanuel Macron of France made a state visit to see President Xi Jinping of China. I have a link in the description to 5 tweets. The anchor tweet, the odd numbers, and the tail tweet. And I am going to transcribe the text for you now. Wow! In an unexpected turn, after an extended meeting with Chinese President Xi, French President Macron states that Europe must reduce its dependency on the U.S. and is looking to establish autonomy from the U.S. and to become a third superpower. All of a sudden, Macron sounds like Putin and Xi, looking to establish a multipolar world outside the domination of the U.S. rule. Slowly but surely, the nations of the world are rejecting U.S. hegemony and are trying to avoid involvement in Biden's desire for kinetic World War III. Macron leaves Beijing adamant that Europe should not allow the U.S. agenda to dictate their fate. Militaristically speaking, the U.S. just lost their second strongest ally should kinetic World War III break out. And the rest of Europe might follow France's lead. Huge win for humanity. Now, I'm going to break off from the thread here to transcribe the image of text that War Clandestine embedded in his third tweet, or at least part of it. As it turns out, Emmanuel Macron said more than that Europe should seek economic and other independence from the United States. He said Europe should stay out of other countries' quarrels. To be specific, he said, quote, the paradox would be that, overcome with panic, we believe we are just America's followers. The question Europeans need to answer, is it in our interest to accelerate a crisis on Taiwan? No. The worst thing would be to think that we Europeans must become followers on this topic and take our cue from the U.S. agenda and a Chinese overreaction, unquote, Emmanuel Macron. Now, notice how that translation came out, the worst thing. I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I have a more than passing acquaintance with French. And I know that the French form their superlatives by adding their the word, le, la, and so on, to a comparative. So, I think they probably The translator probably should have rendered that the worst thing with a T. Now, back to the thread. With ongoing military escalations in Taiwan, it appears Xi is ensuring neutrality from Europe before he moves into Taiwan, which Biden claims the U.S. would defend with military force. Xi wants to move into Taiwan and does not want it to escalate into full-scale World War III. Something else of significance. Xi appeared to get visibly annoyed when Macron and von der Leyen continued to blame China and Russia for the conflict in Ukraine. Xi put his foot down behind closed doors and made Macron recognize the U.S. are the instigators. Based on Macron and Xi's dialogue, it seems all but certain that China will move into Taiwan. Xi is very unhappy with U.S. control of Taiwan via proxy. If we apply the transitive property from Ukraine to Taiwan, there is likely offshore U.S. deep state activity in Taiwan. Stop the music. The tweet containing that text contains a picture of Representative Nancy Pelosi of California, who was Speaker of the House when she appeared in that picture. Do any of you remember my talking to you about her planning a visit to Taiwan? Remember that the Chinese said that they would fire upon any American fighter escort that her transport would require? I said then that they were bluffing and Pelosi should have called them on it. I was wrong. I have changed my mind. This doesn't make me any less suspicious of the long game China is playing. And I'll get to that. But the United States has become a vassal of the World Economic Forum, and they are playing a long game that I do not like. I would never advise my fellow patriots to get between Fu Manchu and Ernst Stavro Blofeld, which is what we're looking at now. And that's even assuming the worst about mainland China's motives. Now, let's wrap up War Clandestine thread. Quote, if you've been following me for any period of time, you already know that I think this is ultimately about U.S. biological activity. According to the U.S. National Institutes of Health, there are 1,251 biolabs in Taiwan, an island approximately the size of Maryland. Here he embeds the anchor tweet from his thread about biological weapons development facilities on Taiwan. I have the link to that anchor tweet in the description, and I've talked about that before. I did this about 2 months ago. But as it stands today, Xi just told Europe via Macron to stand down for when China moves into Taiwan. The U.S. aren't the good guys they claim to be. China and Russia want the U.S. away from their borders, and Europe need not get in the way. It's coming. End of thread. Now, separately, Emily Rauhala of the Washington Post referred to an editorial in Politico.com saying Macron's office edited out part of Macron's conversation with Xi referring to Taiwan. I have a link in the description to her tweet. But I also have a link to video by Red Voice Media talking about, among other things, China running exercises involving an invasion of Taiwan. Commentators call these exercises simulated attacks. It's a lot to unpack here, I know it. Before I get into my analysis, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, the employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy to your future. Now then, and now my analysis. I want to acquaint you with a few facts about China, about the People's Republic of China, that are beyond dispute. the Chinese Communist Party still holds sway. They are the most brutal of all the communist parties that have ever existed. Furthermore, China has, for thousands of years, sought to be the middle kingdom to rule the world. This means all the civilized world known to China at any given time. We can only speculate how different the world would appear today had the Roman general Pompey the Great, fleeing from his defeat at Pharsalus, succeeded in reaching China and signing on as chief of staff to Emperor Yuan, that's Y-U-A-N, it's pronounced Wan, of China's Han Dynasty. Now, of course, we know what happened instead. Egyptian officials had Pompey assassinated where he came ashore near Alexandria. Having said that, we must remember that the deep state is the enemy of all mankind. I repeat, even if Xi Jinping is Fu Manchu, we have a proxy for Ernst Stavro Blofeld running our own country. And I do not mean that doddering old babbler of word salad and sniffer of little girls' hair. I'm talking about the son of a British colonial subject who has his own proxy in the form of a former United Nations ambassador in place. But I digress. The point is, it ill befits an American to cheer for the deep state. And as War Clandestine points out, the deep state might indeed have biological weapons development facilities on Taiwan. No one who plays around with deadly germs deserves the support of a free citizen of any country. So it would appear that China is preparing to repossess Taiwan, not only to repossess traditional Chinese territory, but also to destroy those biological weapons development laboratories if they exist. More broadly, China has already reached peak population, or will in 2030, according to World Population Review. They have a male-female ratio of 65. Now that means that Chinese men are playing musical chairs for their women, and out of every 6 men, 1 is going to get shut out. That's an awful lot of men shut out of marriage. They will make fierce, determined, nothing to lose soldiers. Taiwan hasn't a chance against such a force, and one wonders where else China will try to invade. However, the Chinese accepted the jab, and it has had its effect against men of military age. I have reliable information that as many as 50% of Chinese men of military age would be out of shape. So the effectiveness of Chinese forces against an enemy that can match them on the battlefield might be significantly less than one would ordinarily project. More to the point, China has an aged population, and its elites are at the dead end of organ harvesting of the young to provide the old with transplants, to say nothing of the immune suppression that transplant surgery always requires. Emmanuel Macron is incorrect in one regard. Taiwan is not an American patriotic agenda. It is a World Economic Forum and deep state agenda. America must become a self-sufficient, self-defending civilizational state, not an empire builder. This probably does not require intervening in Taiwan. Whatever stake Nancy Pelosi has in Taiwan, let her lose it. And whatever stake the World Economic Forum has in Taiwan, they definitely deserve to lose. Links in the description of the article, to the thread, to the anchor tweet, to War Clandestine's earlier thread, to Emily Rauhala's tweet, to Red Voice Media's video, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlives.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to my China playlist and 2 videos from other sources, including media sources, showing sightings of People's Liberation Army Navy vessels and aircraft near Taiwan. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.